very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. I am Hina Gambhir. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is in India for a two-day visit. This is his maiden visit to India. His planned visit, remember, to India got cancelled at least twice due to COVID pandemic earlier. He arrived in Ahmedabad this morning, met industrialist Gautam Adani, visited Sabarmati Ashram, was seen spinning a charkha too. He even visited JCB bulldozer factory. And tomorrow, he is going to have a meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the national capital. And this meeting is going to be very important. The focus is on trade ties between India and the UK, and also what exactly will the two leaders discuss as far as Russia-Ukraine crisis is concerned. That's something that we all will be keeping a close eye on. But the visuals that you can see on your screens right now are from Gujarat, from different parts of Gujarat today, where UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson visited. So it was a packed day for him. It's just a two-day visit for him in India. And tomorrow he's going to be in the national capital, where crucial meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to take place. Before we tell you what exactly happened on day one of his visit to India, let's listen in to what exactly he had to say.
It's been a wonderful trip so far, absolutely fantastic, and it's great to be here in Gujarat. Gujarat is an extraordinary place, and as you know, we have a huge Gujarati community in the UK, which incarnates the living bridge between India and the Ukraine in the UK.
About building bridges with Prime Minister Modi tomorrow.
Yes, well, I'm looking forward very much to our conversation, and we'll talk about trade, about security, about all the issues that we share. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
The Gujarat said Kemcho to Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, today, and he is also looking forward to that crucial meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi tomorrow. That's what he said while he was in Gujarat today. Let's now go across to my colleague Madhav, who's been tracking the developments very, very closely. Madhav, thank you for joining us live this evening. What has been the schedule of UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson like on day one? Bring us up to speed with the key highlights of his first day's visit to India.
Well, yes, it's been a packed first day on his visit to India for UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Incidentally, the first Prime Minister of the UK to visit Gujarat, despite the fact that the United Kingdom itself has a huge expat population, not just of Indians, but of Gujaratis in particular. But clearly, the first stop that he made today was at the Sabarmati Ashram, where, of course, he wrote in the visitor's book as far as Mahatma Gandhi is concerned, how he used two simple methods of truth and non-violence to really show the whole world how things could be done and really set an example for the entire world. Very, very important words there. Also, of course, requests coming in from the Gandhi Ashram itself that several documents that exist within the UK should be provided to them, to which they said that the UK Prime Minister responded positively to that request as well. From there on, he went on to meet Gautam Adani, who is, of course, the chief of the Adani Group, and at his headquarters, of course, announcements being made on cooperation between UK and India, particularly, of course, Adani Group on various aspects, including defense, aerospace technologies, as well as, of course, clean and renewable energy as well. So that is an important visit. After that, of course, he went to something that has now become a sort of meme on social media, the visit to the JCB plant, which is, of course, incidentally a British company. But Boris Johnson visiting that Halol factory, which is about 170 kilometers from Ahmedabad, where we're currently at, and of course, in context of the larger political debate surrounding JCBs, bulldozers, and demolition, certainly a lot of chatter on social media as far as those pictures and videos that emerged of Boris Johnson atop JCB in that Halol factory is concerned. But from then on, he came back to Gandhinagar, where he visited the Gift City and, of course, the cooperative university, the collaborative university that he visited. And from then on, a visit to the Akshardham temple. And even as we speak, of course, an important dinner that Boris Johnson is hosting for very prominent citizens of Ahmedabad, including several leaders of industry and, of course, political leadership as well. And, of course, from here, he will be heading to the national capital at 9 o'clock. He takes off to New Delhi, where tomorrow is going to be a very important and packed day as well.
Well, absolutely. All eyes are going to be on that crucial meeting of UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson tomorrow with Prime Minister Modi. What exactly can we expect?
Well, yes, this bilateral meeting between the two prime ministers is really going to be the most important aspect of this entire visit. Of course, the big, of course, issue is that of Ukraine. Now, India and UK have very, very different and divergent positions on Ukraine, while Boris Johnson has personally been on ground to Kiev and has extended his support to President Zelensky and has taken a very strong position against Russian aggression as far as Ukraine is concerned, and has in fact imposed financial sanctions, has been requesting other countries of the world to do that as well. India has taken a more balanced approach. It has engaged with all the players and has said that its traditional policy of non-alignment in that sense would continue, and that it would keep itself equidistant or its own domestic concerns in security and defense, of course, are also very, very key concerns that India would keep in mind while taking its position on this. To this, we have seen the UK's, sources within the UK government come out to say that Boris Johnson will not be lecturing India as to what to do as far as Ukraine is concerned, which clearly shows that at some level or the other, there is a sense of acceptance that two countries that have friendly relations need not have exactly the same position on a third country. And that's pretty much par for course when it comes to diplomacy. But of course, there are several other issues. For instance, the statements that have been made by Boris Johnson in respect to the Asia-Pacific region, which many are seeing as a reference to China. And this is something that India would certainly want Boris Johnson to do in terms of Chinese aggression, because it being deplored by any other world leader certainly is very, very significant, given that India has raised its concerns, particularly since the Chinese aggression at the LAC has been seen over the past few years. So a lot that's on the table. What will be the takeaways? What will be the big ticket announcements? That's what really we will have to look forward to when the two leaders meet, and if there is an official briefing or a statement that comes out of that meeting as well. Back to you.
All right, Madhav, thank you very much for the moment for joining us and getting us all those details. Of course, we'll be tracking this very, very closely ahead as well with you because tomorrow he's going to be in the national capital. Let's also now listen in to what the people of different parts of Ahmedabad had to say about UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson visiting India and making Ahmedabad in Gujarat his first stop.
और फील होता है हमारे अहमदाबाद में आते हैं तो सब लोग ऐसे बड़े बड़े नेता है सब कंट्री के आते हैं, अच्छा लगता है कि ऐसा सब कुछ अहमदाबाद में होता है, फंक्शन होता है, रिवर फ्रंट में सब कुछ सजावट लाइटिंग वगैरह सब कुछ होता है, अच्छा लगता है।
और तो होगा ही अभिमान होना चाहिए, क्योंकि इतने बड़े बड़े वर्ल्ड लीडर जो है अलग अलग इतनी बड़ी कंट्री के, तो वो अहमदाबाद में आते हैं। क्यों? क्योंकि आज हमारे गुजरात का एक बंदा वहाँ पे पीएम की तौर पे है, तब जाके वो लोग यहाँ आते हैं। तो गुजरात को बहुत सारी अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलती है, बहुत सारे इसके प्लस पॉइंट्स है जो हमें महसूस नहीं होते। कई तरीके बिजनेस है, दूसरी लाइन पे भी बहुत तरीके से वो गुजरात में प्लस पॉइंट देखने को मिलते हैं।
अपने ही मातृभूमि और अपने ही जन्म की सिटी को इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे ग्रो करते देखते हैं तो अच्छा ही लगेगा सर, बट नेचुरल थिंग है। पर उसके साथ साथ जितना हमारा यश फैलेगा उतना ही हमारी अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ भी बढ़ेंगी, हमारा नाम भी बढ़ेगा, वीज़ा में भी प्रॉब्लम्स रिड्यूस हो जाएंगे। आजकल वीज़ा में बहुत तकलीफ़ें हैं, पर नाम अगर बड़ा है सिटी का तो बट नेचुरल है, पहचानेंगे तो तकलीफ़ें भी कम होंगी।
ये सब हमें अच्छा लगा, हम अपना देश के लिए, हमारे अहमदाबाद के लिए, गुजरात के लिए गौरव की बात है कि इतना बड़े लोग इनके बोलने से कहने से सीधे आते और यहाँ कुछ उनका प्रोग्राम बनाते, धंधा का बिजनेस का कुछ एग्रीमेंट बनाते, तो फॉर्चुनेटली अपने देश को जो फ़ायदा ही है ना।
And this is what the people of Ahmedabad had to say about the visit of UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. In fact, we also spoke to Kartikeya Sarabhai, trustee Sabarmati Ashram. And here's what the people at Sabarmati Ashram had to say on his visit.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has just visited the Sabarmati ashram to talk about what happened during his visit to the ashram, and very significant since that he is the Prime Minister of the country that Mahatma Gandhi fought to actually over 75 years ago break the yoke of colonial rule of. Let's talk about that with Mr. Kartikeya Sarabhai, who is a trustee of the ashram. So what did Mr. Boris Johnson say when he visited here? What is the information you gave him? I believe he was also very surprised to learn that the British had actually taxed salt, and that's what led to the Dandi March.
He sort of knew about it, but what he learned here, first of all, when he came here, he immediately recognized that this is a place for a spiritual visit. It's not just a political place. And Gandhi had that power on him. So he saw this just walking on the stones where we are standing now, where Gandhiji worked, seeing his room and everything else. He was there, he knows obviously of Gandhi's overall thing, but to know about each little story. And each of Gandhiji's stories are fascinating because they bring out the character of the person. And Gandhiji had to fight not only the British, but also so many ills of our society. And he saw that for instance, the whole caste system and untouchability. This was not something which the British brought, but which we had to deal with as an Indian society. So he saw that Gandhiji's integrity was to fight for truth, whether it was British or whether it was India. And even at times, when his own family members said, if you do this, we'll leave, he said, okay, you can leave, when he brings in Harijans into the ashram. So that integrity of that person and starting from truth and non-violence. So that was the reason.
Have you placed any requests? Because a lot of the life of Mahatma Gandhi has been documented, and there are a lot of documents of, in the United Kingdom that would be of interest to researchers here.
Yeah, so over the years, lot of material on Gandhi has been collected and put in. But according to us at the ashram, where we have one of the best archives on Gandhi, there is still a lot of material which you can find in Britain. So we are proposing a next 2 to 3 year program between the ashram and them to really identify these things and collect them and bring it to India. And he was very positive on that, and he said, let's do it. So I hope over the next weeks we will work out an actual program and get it done. For instance, what does the British Secret Service have on Gandhi? Now this is something else. It's in documents. So how do we get that? And is it still available or not available?
And joining us on the broadcast this evening is Maruf Raza, Group Consulting Editor, Times Network. We also have with us Captain Alok Bansal, retired Director, India Foundation. We will be joined by Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, and also Rabinder Sachdev, President, Image India Institute. Appreciate both of you gentlemen for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. Maruf, let's begin the discussion with you. How do you see this visit of UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson? Because of course, everyone is going to look forward to that crucial meeting between him and Prime Minister Modi tomorrow. Both the countries, we know, have got a different view as far as Ukraine-Russia crisis is concerned. So on that aspect specifically, what are your expectations?
I think the British delegation has already made it clear that they don't want just discussions over Ukraine to overshadow this visit, which has been long in the offing, has been put off at least once, if not twice, because of the COVID pandemic. What they're expecting from India is another major trade arrangement, like India has struck recently with Australia and before that with the UAE. The reason is that the UK is now out of EU, and it definitely needs countries where trade can be enhanced. UK is a global leader in a number of areas, though we tend to overlook UK when we talk of Europe because the thrust is towards looking at Germany and technology, or when we look at the West, then America dominates the narrative. But UK has a lot of things going for it, and that is what he's going to push vis-a-vis India. For example, India has just announced that it is looking to spend $300 billion over the next 8 years till 2030 in updating, modernizing, and enhancing its defense infrastructure, equipment, and its armed forces. That UK will certainly like to get a slice of the pie because the UK does make still pretty much top-notch military technology in some areas. It has, if you may recall, in the past, made fighter jets. It makes some very good land warfare equipment. And UK is, we don't often read about it, but I know for a fact it's a global leader on intelligence gathering and intelligence sharing of inputs, particularly with reference to terrorists and terrorist groups. Now, those things are very important to us. We must remember also that London is at the crossroads of every terrorist going to any part of the world. Going from Asia to Latin America, they go through London. They go from Asia to America, they might just go through London. So London does pick up, and it has very good facial imaging that it picks up, and intelligence gathering. It has all the data. We can do with that more of that data sharing in our fight against terrorism. And finally, and most importantly, I think Mr. Johnson can really enhance education partnership between India and the UK. We must remember our educational system up till graduation is very British-centric even now. And therefore, the British engagement with our educational system, collaborative ventures, delivery of degrees and programs would go a long way in enhancing the ambitions of Indian students who could use that and then jump on to the US if they want to, or go for shorter programs to the UK, which are far more cost-effective.
Interesting. Ambassador Sajjan Har, now UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has already, in a way, appreciated India's response to what is happening in Ukraine specifically. He's also said that UK has already raised Ukraine war issue with Prime Minister Modi at the diplomatic level. So from that perspective, any specific expectations that you have? What is it, in your view, the leaders could really discuss tomorrow? Do you think UK Prime Minister will still try to, nudge India to probably look at reducing its dependence on Russia and look at the West?
I would tend, Hina, to agree with what Maruf has said. I think what Mr. Johnson is going to do is he will be in Delhi. He will say his piece because, he cannot do without saying that, without referring to that, because after all, the domestic constituency in the UK and also the Western constituency, he has to make it clear that he did raise the issue with India. But he's very clear, he knows it full well. Even when Elizabeth Truss was here on the 31st of March, and then I'm sure Mr. Johnson would have seen very clearly as to what the interaction between Prime Minister Modi and Joe Biden was on the 11th of this month, and also the 2+2 interaction between India and the United States. So, India is not defensive. India is not apologetic about what it is doing. India is very open, and it has very cogent and plausible reasons for what it is doing. Whether it is in terms of our votes, our abstention over, 10 or 11 votes on the UN platform, I think we have been able to explain very convincingly that although it might have been abstentions, but our explanation of votes have been to protection of territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine, and also we have been very clear and very categorical in terms of unequivocally condemning what has happened, the violence in Bucha and the massacre in Bucha. And also, as far as oil imports are concerned, basically it is to meet our energy security concerns, since India imports about 85% of its oil from outside and only 1 or 2% from Russia, which is much less than, as our External Affairs Minister very aptly mentioned, that, what we import in a month, EU imports in an afternoon. And also, I think we made this point very clear that, as far as our imports from United States, which started so very recently, have jumped to about 10% of our requirements. Right. Even as far as defense requirements are concerned, and this Mr. Antony Blinken himself had said that, it is a legacy relationship, it is a historical relationship. And in any case, our imports have come down from about 80% of our total imports in 2002 or something to about 48, 49% today. So there is a huge diversification of which the United States has taken a huge chunk of the pie, and Britain also, UK also. And I'm sure the agreements that are being discussed, the investments that are going to be made by Bharat Forge, by Mastech in the UK in the area of defense, IT, etc.
Right.
I think that is to the advantage. So my view, this is going to be, whatever the press and the media might make of it, but basically the focus is going to be on bilateral issues, on the FTA in which significant progress has been made, and on Indo-Pacific, on how the two countries can work together in terms of dealing with the increased aggressiveness and belligerence of China.
Interesting. Bilateral issues are going to be very, very important, and it seems that UK Prime Minister also wants the country and the world to focus more on that during his visit to India this time. Captain Alok Bansal, free trade agreement that Ambassador Sajjanhar also touched upon briefly is also on the agenda. Of course, UK Prime Minister hopes to clinch this particular deal with India by the end of this year. We know that about two rounds of talks have already happened out of about 26 or chapters or policy areas. Both India and the UK have agreed on 422 still remaining. Where do you see things moving as far as the free trade agreement is concerned that UK really wants?
See, free trade agreement is in the interest of both the countries, and UK after Brexit desperately needs a free trade agreement because it needs a larger market for its industries, which is actually the market for its industries is constricted. And we also want a certain facilitation as far as our services are concerned. And I think we are progressing on that. But by and large, there has been certain reservations of late in India as far as a free trade agreement and larger trade arrangements are concerned. And one of the reasons was that we did not join RCEP consequent to that. But I think with both UK as well as with the EU, the free trade agreement is progressing, and we should be able to clinch it very fast. We also need to understand that this happens at a time when India-UK economic relationship is more or less balanced. It's not like the olden days when we expected only British investments in India. As you know, at this point of time, the UK is looking for Indian companies to invest in UK. There are actually reports that 1,600 new jobs will be created because Maersk will invest in UK and other companies will invest. There are also a lot of collaborative ventures that we are looking at. Especially, it's been talked that we will be, there is a lot of avenues for collaboration as far as artificial intelligence is concerned, the renewable energy sector is concerned, the 5G in which we are going to jump and to take a big leap. We would need, our Indian companies may need collaboration with Britain because we would want to keep the Chinese hardware and software out. So there is a need for collaboration. So there are a lot of fields in pharmaceuticals. Indian companies, many of them have invested in UK. There are companies which are thinking in terms of setting up facilities. A lot of R&D facilities are being set up. So it is a win-win situation if we can actually clinch this free trade agreement and have a greater, take it further to comprehensive economic partnership agreement subsequently. Because with UK, we would want an agreement on financial services also. But on geopolitically, I think one of the agendas of Boris Johnson, as you earlier brought out, would be to focus on Ukraine. But the British delegation has clearly indicated that they've not come here to pontificate India on Ukraine, but they would certainly put across their point of view and would also like to listen what are India's views as far as a Russia-Ukraine crisis is concerned, as far as sanctions on Russia are concerned. From India's point of view, there are a lot of anti-India elements which have been using UK to protest against India. You have a huge Mirpuri diaspora which is galvanized by many anti-India people on the issue of Kashmir. Then there have been certain Khalistani extremists who have been using UK's territory to propagate anti-India views. I think India would like to utilize all these things during this visit.
Okay, interesting. Rabinder Sachdev, as there are, of course, many avenues of collaboration that both India and UK will be exploring in this important meeting between Prime Minister Modi and UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Apart from this, reports are suggesting that Boris Johnson, while he was on his way to India in the flight, reportedly told the journalist that it is looking to attract talent from India, and something that UK is really keeping a close eye on, has got a straight agenda as well. Do you think this visit also in a way marks the beginning of a new era of ties between India and UK?
Thank you. Yes, yes, I do think very much. This is a new world starting after the close down of the COVID era, after Brexit. So in a way, the world is rebooting, right? And in this age today, of course, now the UK definitely needs much more. I mean, it needs trade deals. It's out of the EU now. It needs strong partners, big markets and all. So absolutely to that, it's a new era, one. And there seems to be a willingness of some give and take. You see this example that you cited that, they're saying that, we need more talent. Basically, what it means is that they will ease up the immigration. Basically, what it means is that more of our professionals could be going there and working. More of our students could be going there and working. That obviously helps us out in terms of jobs for our youth and professionals. But by the way, it also helps us in our remittances, right? Because when we have expats working in other countries, we benefit not only that one person is getting a job, right? But there are remittances also coming with it. So this is a good move, I'll say, by the British. But in exchange of this, of course, they're going to ask for something else. Probably they're going to ask something that they've been very much, talking about lowering of customs duties or tariffs on high-end goods like whiskeys, cars, stuff like that, right? To which India may be amenable. There's always going to be give and take. They will not, give us easier immigration and more numbers instead of wanting something, right? Now, but at the same time, yes, both from the trade perspective as well as from the geopolitical perspective, I would say this would be a business-like visit, right? On the geopolitics side also, fine, they're doing away with the cloud of Ukraine, sure, it will be mentioned, but at least not in the public. So it's a business-like meeting on the geopolitics of the day, I would say, which could also include link to trade. The Quad, which is coming up, and the idea of the Quad is supply chains and resilience of supply chains, especially in green energy and green tech, etc. Now, the UK is positioning itself also into green tech and the green economy, right? So getting integrated on some of those sides on the trade side also. Now, one of our colleagues mentioned just now that it's become a two-way business street. Of course, there's some numbers I see which say that about 1.2 million jobs are created in India, direct and indirect, through British companies.
Right.
And about 120,000 jobs are created in the UK through Indian companies and investments. And one last quick point. You see, he's coming here, he wants to go back to his own constituency at his home and say that, I got some good deals. He's coming here to get business for his country. So what they're already citing is this, $1.3 billion of investments and trade, which are by UK companies and Indian companies, and which will apparently create 11,000 jobs in the UK. So the one thing that he goes back would be, this would be one of the first things that his office would put out, that, we do not know, by the way, what will come out tomorrow. There could be some interesting and other breaking news, etc. But they've signed up about 30 odd MOUs with Mastek, Byju's, 5 jobs, 10 jobs. They've totaled it all up to say that, okay, 11,000 jobs will be created and $1.3 billion. So it's a business-like visit, but in an absolute new era. So it is time for India also, realizing the fact, as all our eminent colleagues have mentioned, that UK is seeking its own
Yes.
goal also in this time due to Brexit.
Interesting. Maruf, now, while UK, Prime Minister Boris Johnson is digging deeper on Indian soil and focusing more on trade and bilateral ties, of course, there is a visual signal as well that's being sent to his own constituency there. And what does it mean for India, the significance that India has in this changing world order?
Well, the world order has now, in the last couple of months, changed even more dramatically with what Russia has done in Ukraine. And following that, the Russian inability to influence an outcome which the Russians thought was a walkover. So there is now talk about what is the new world order going to be. Whichever way it pans out, India is going to be an important player. So I think, one of the points that I've often talked about in various gatherings where I've spoken and otherwise, that India must learn to prepare to punch in its weight category. We often punch below our weight strategically. And therefore, I always compare India's example with Israel. We were independent at about the same time, 1947 us, Israel 1948, but no conversation in the Middle East ends without serious references to Israel. And the world should now continue to look at India as whichever way they look at issues, at least in Asia. We're not a global power yet, but we play a pivotal role. And I think to that extent, Mr. Johnson and his team recognize that. There is a strong India studies emphasis in the UK. There is a deep understanding of the strengths of India. There are Indians who have made a mark in virtually every walk of life. In fact, if Mr. Johnson loses his job, as was being predicted by some, he might just be replaced by somebody of Indian origin, as we all know, Rishi Sunak. So the fact is, India is very much on his radar screen. I suppose it must be part of his nightmares also, put it in lighter vein. But more importantly, I think what Mr. Johnson must recognize that there is an India today that the sooner he engages with all sort of doors open, the more Britain stands to gain. Very important, if British brands have been bought over by Indian company, Tata's is a case in point that they have bought out JLR. And there are many other Indian companies which are all over the place. Even I've met small entrepreneurs who are very successful there.
Right.
What they need to understand is also that if you allow more Indians to come in, it is not your run-of-the-mill, beaten-out immigrant that comes in from East Europe or North Africa. Indians that go in there are going in there to make a contribution to British society. It's a global world. Britain must understand the importance of tapping on what Prime Minister Modi has often referred to as India's demographic dividend. And as Mr. Rajendra had rightly brought out, that, if you look at one person getting a job there, there is a great benefit that comes on to families here. Look at the Middle East. Do you know Dubai is a city built by Indians?
Right.
Maybe Arab money, but it's built by Indians. So Indians have the capacity to change the order of protocol anywhere given the opportunity. And Mr. Johnson could do well by opening more doors for Indians and engaging at least in one area where it's win-win for Britain if it comes in. And that is in the defense industrial sector, amongst other things that our distinguished guests have brought out. There is a lot of money India is willing to put in, and India wants Make in India. Britain has some of the technology. If they can jump onto that bandwagon, they won't regret it.
Okay. Now, Ambassador Sajjan Har, we know that Prime Minister Modi is likely to visit Germany, Denmark and France. The final announcement is expected around 24th of April. Of course, we've discussed the kind of expectations UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has from this visit to India. How will you like to respond to the focus that India is giving to Europe specifically amidst what is happening between Russia and Ukraine and the stand that US has taken?
Yeah, I think basically, what India, in my view, would like to do is move away from the discussion on Ukraine, particularly as far as, in terms of what the media says, applying more pressure on India etc., etc. And we would like to sort of speak with all these countries, with our interlocutors, in terms of what we can do either together or in terms of India and EU. You would recall that last year in May, there was India plus EU plus 27 meet that took place under the presidency of Portugal. That was on 8th of May, if my memory serves me correctly. And I think that was also, we set in motion the EU-India FTA discussions. They are going forward in a very positive manner. And they also need to be wrapped up quite quickly. I don't think we should put the burden of India's moving away from RCEP on our discussions, because I think much water has flown down several rivers in Europe and India also. After RCEP, we've had the India-Australia FTA, India-UAE FTA. So India is ready, and India's exports last year have, for the first time, gone beyond $400 billion. So I think we are on a good wicket. We are on a strong wicket. Also, when the Prime Minister goes to Denmark, as you mentioned, Hina, he is going to be interacting with all the 5 Nordic countries. You'd recall that in April 2018, we had the first India-Nordic summit in Stockholm. So this is the second Nordic summit was to take place in Denmark last year, but could not happen because of the raging COVID around the world. And now in May, it is likely to take place. All the 5 prime ministers, the 4 of the other countries are to congregate in Denmark. And again, there it is going to be basically trade, it's going to be renewable energy, it's going to be climate change, it's going to be innovation. So I think that is the focus of Prime Minister's interaction, because, as it has been mentioned many times, Hina, it is the economy is stupid. So it is the economy that India is also focusing on. And I think similarly, it will have to be with France also. There would be either a new leadership or a continuation of the same leadership by the time the Prime Minister goes there. So we will have to wait and see how things work out there. But I don't think, barring a passing reference or so to the Russia-Ukraine war, because that takes up time, but doesn't advance the bilateral relationship partnership. That is what we would be interested in. That is what will happen in Boris Johnson's visit, and that will happen when Prime Minister Modi visits Europe next month.
Interesting. And there's a side story unfolding during his visit to India as well. He climbed on top of a JCB bulldozer while he was in Gujarat today. It's a British company, but given the recent focus that we've seen in use of earth movers, of course, a political spin is being given to this development as well, given our domestic context. Of course, we'll keep an eye on what happens tomorrow in this crucial meeting. I would like to thank all my guests. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening and helping us decode this visit of UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson to India.